Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. The podcast is designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. This week's episode is going to be a little bit different to what I've normally done. This idea came about, I was talking to a friend of mine, Danny Haggerty, and he said it would be really interesting to find out why some people are leaving the profession. So him and I had a bit of a chat about it, and I thought, okay, let's put this together as an episode. So this is actually going to be a two-part episode. This week is part one. Next week will be part two. So what I did, I sent out the feelers. I put a few posts in different Facebook groups to find out if there was anyone who wanted to share their story. I actually spoke to a number of people, and I did 5 short recordings with different people in Australia and overseas. And what was interesting, I also spoke to a number of people in multiple countries who didn't want to come on the podcast and have their comments recorded in case I was found out who they were, but they actually shared a lot of insight with me. Now, I had my own preconceived ideas on why I thought people left the profession. Some of them sort of came true, what my guests told me, sort of ticked those boxes, but I was surprised with a couple of other things. So what I want to do is I'm going to play 3 episodes today, or 3 short recordings today with 3 different podiatrists, and then next week I'll share the other 2. I'm not really going to comment too much on what they said, whether I agreed or disagreed with their comments. I'm going to wait until the end of episode 2 or part 2, and then I'll share my overview comments and review of what I've actually taken away from these short interviews. So like I said, today there's going to be 3. The first interview, the person wanted to stay anonymous. They didn't want their name to be mentioned. And the other 2, we do mention who they are. So I want you to sit back and enjoy this. Take it in, take whatever parts from it that you want. I haven't done this episode because I want people to leave the profession. I've done this episode because I want people to stay in the profession, and actually mention this multiple times while I'm talking to my guests. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I would love your feedback after you've listened to this and your thoughts. Send me an email, tf@tysonfranklin.com. or just send me a direct message through Facebook. So sit back, relax, and enjoy these episodes. So, Mr. Anonymous, how are you doing?
Good, Tyson. How are you?
I'm great. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on why I quit podiatry. So just to run through a couple of things, when did you actually graduate?
Graduated La Trobe University in Victoria here in Australia, and graduated 4 years ago now.
Okay, so how many years into podiatry did you leave?
3.
Oh, it's not very long.
Not long at all.
Okay, so the big question, why did you leave? What was it about? Well, before we do that, was podiatry your first choice?
Yes, first choice coming out of high school, heading to university. First choice and obviously first preference. Okay,
when you graduated, your first job, what was it like?
I was very lucky. First job, I was in a fortunate enough position where the clinic I worked for very well established here in Victoria, and had a very good mentoring program with it, with very highly regarded podiatrists. So yeah. I definitely didn't take that for granted coming first year out. Had to make some sacrifices to kind of go down the path I went down. I moved cities to take up that opportunity because I knew.
Was it in a regional area or?
It was in Geelong.
Okay.
Probably I wouldn't call it regional, but not where I was originally.
So everyone listening to this is going, okay, it's from La Trobe 4 years ago, went to Geelong. We know it's. I'm not saying it.
But yeah, no, I was for a grad position. I was very fortunate to.
Oh, that's good.
Get it, yeah.
So when did things go south for you then? Like you got out, the first job was pretty good, which is sounding very promising. It was your first choice of careers. When did it start to spiral out of control?
Probably towards midway through my grad year, to be honest. I probably became pretty disillusioned with the idea of being a podiatrist and the workload around it. And like along with that, a bit of a personality thing for me as well. I began to kind of struggle with struggle is probably not the right word, but become less tolerant of having 20 different patients in front of you each day, and offload their kind of issues and problems on you. And personally, I probably just didn't put enough mechanisms in place to kind of not let that affect me at the end of the week, sort of thing.
That's interesting. So you're saying because one of the things I've heard when people say, I love podiatry because, I can have 14, 20 patients a day and they're all different. So therefore I'm seeing so many different things, my brain's switching from one thing to another. Whereas for you, having those 20 different patients was messing with your head.
Yeah. And it wasn't so much.
That's interesting.
And it wasn't so much the complexity in caseload. It was more so just that same conversation that you're kind of having every 20 to 30 minutes, when you got someone in pain, it does become a little bit taxing after a few months of routine sort of stuff.
Did you feel you were seeing too many patients?
Probably in my first year out, I was. I was worked hard, but had a lot of support around me to do that.
Yeah.
And then after that first year out, I had a change of environment and moved to 30-minute appointments. So workload was definitely not substantial. But again, it was just that.
But was this a different clinic?
Yes, different clinic.
Okay, so the first clinic you stayed there for the first year, and were they 20-minute appointments in that first year when you were working?
Correct.
Oh, yes. I would have hated that too.
Yeah, and like as I said, I was very fortunate. I had a very good support network around me.
Yeah.
And I'd never say an ill word about the clinic or the people there.
That's good.
But I just at the end of that year, I knew that if I didn't have a change of scenery, I probably would have left the profession then. To be honest.
How was the mentoring process when you were in that first year? Were they willing to give you a lot of time beginning to help get you settled? Because it sounds like who you work for were pretty good.
Yeah. It was it was very good in the sense that when I first started, they would filter through the clients that I would see. So I started off with kind of easing things in with just a bit of generals and maybe 1 or 2 biomechs a day. And as I became more confident, they would just filter through more biomech patients as they came.
Yeah.
There was weekly mentoring sessions and heaps of opportunity to do external kind of CPD as well. So can't fault anything in that regard.
Okay, that's good. So the first year was pretty positive, other than the workload and probably the mental drain, which going from a student where you're seeing a couple of patients in an afternoon session to having a lot of patients in a short period of time. And I totally understand the employer wants to get maximum return out of their employee. So when you made the change, what was the next change like?
The next change, again, another positive altogether. I was originally going to go back and study again, and had an opportunity to then go to another clinic before I kind of walked away from the profession altogether. So I started at a different clinic, also in Geelong, just for on the I guess assumption that maybe a change of scenery is all I needed. 30-minute appointments and just a change of scenery, and like the 30-minute appointments certainly helped a lot. Again, it wasn't a workload sort of issue. It was more so just like the inflow of patients that you kind of have sitting in front of you each day and having offloading their, for lack of a better term, their crap on you. Was the only issue. But yeah, got to the end of the 12 months there and was kind of already looking for that kind of next, that out of podiatry, I guess.
Yeah. So pretty much by the end of your second year, were you just finding that podiatry wasn't what you wanted to do? It was just simple that you weren't enjoying it.
Well, I would, on its good days, I absolutely loved it. There's no better feeling than seeing one of your, I guess, complex musculoskeletal patients come back pain-free and you get to discharge them. There's no better feeling than that. And for the most part, as a profession and what I got to do day to day, I really did enjoy. But I guess it was towards the end of that second year where you realize how much work you are putting in and how much overtime and unpaid overtime you do, where you kind of look around and think, oh, there's got to be something better than this. And that's probably what triggered.
And when you say unpaid overtime, so is this where you were seeing so many patients throughout the day that you didn't have time to do your notes, and therefore you're expected to stay behind afterwards, do your notes, do orthotic designs, do orthotic adjustments?
To a degree, yes.
Yeah.
There was a small degree of that, but it was also time traveling between clinics. So I'm not sure.
Oh, were you working in multiple practices, driving between? Okay.
Practices, yeah.
So that'd get annoying after a period. How far, what was the distance between the clinics?
1 day a week, I worked in a clinic that was about 50 minutes away.
Yeah.
And then the other ones were all probably about anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes away.
Okay. Were you paid for your time for driving to get there? Or was that just bad luck? It's 50 minutes away. You drive an hour to get there. Yeah. If there's a bit of traffic, and so it's 2 hours out of your day, and they didn't pay you for that.
Yeah. To be fair, if I'm sure that if I had asked, they might have contemplated it, but
it's not about you asking. I don't think it's fair. Like, I used to have a clinic here in Cairns, and we had another clinic in Arroway and Mareeba. Their driving time was included as part of their pay. I calculated that in. That if it was going to be a long day like that, then they were paid for all their time. Yeah.
And that's probably the similar attitude I had, where it's probably a fact that I shouldn't have had to ask, but regardless.
Okay, no, that's a really good point. So what did you do in the third year?
Third year was started this year. So I was still at the practice that I was at, and I was lucky to be in a position where they had put forward an opportunity to be more of a podiatrist in the years to come, more than just a podiatrist in the years to come, which is what I ultimately wanted. I did work very hard those first 2 years, and I tried to be the best podiatrist I could be, and I kind of learn as much as possible, because I knew that if I was going to stay in the profession, it wouldn't just be in a podiatry capacity. I'd want to do something in some sort of management or ownership side of things. There was that was put on the table as something that would happen in the future, which was good, but ultimately it just wasn't the deal and the package that goes with that. Still, at the end of the day, just isn't as appealing, or, as much as I hate saying it, as lucrative as what else is out there in, say, a government or public sector. So
what was the final straw that broke the camel's back that made you decide, that's it, I'm leaving? Did a job come up and you applied for it and go, if I get this, I will leave? Or did you go, I'm leaving and now I'm going to look for a job?
Not quite. Yeah, it was definitely that first scenario. So I had, at the first clinic I was at, first year out, we had two of our experienced podiatrists leave and get jobs at a government.
What were you being paid at the time? Can you say?
First year out, I was on 55,000.
Okay.
Plus super, so I think it took me up to about that $60,000 mark. And then that second year out, I was on 70 inclusive of super, with a pay rise that came earlier this year. But yeah, essentially, to kind of answer your question, it was the fact that we had two experienced podiatrists get jobs at a government organisation and speak very highly of it at the time, and kind of shed a bit of light on what life is like outside of the profession and what you can get if you kind of broaden your horizons. And they were sending through positions at this same organisation to me through the course of that year. And I guess on one of my bad days, I said, you know what, I'm going to apply for one of these and just throw the hat in the ring and see what happens. And yeah, I guess the rest is history.
So the pay was significantly more. You don't have to tell me what it was.
Significantly, yes.
Yeah. And I've already figured out who you worked for by our conversation, because I think it was your last boss who actually contacted me and said, you should do an episode on this. It was his idea for this particular episode.
Yeah.
And he said, I know a few people that you can actually talk to, which I think it's great that he knew that you left. And he was saying, and he told me why he thought you'd left. So
yeah. And he's the one who asked me to come and speak on this, to be honest. He said, look, go on it, just be as honest as possible. We don't really care what you say, but we'd just love to keep more people in the profession. So, yeah, that's why I'm here.
So is there anything else you want to say? So do you think you'll ever go back to podiatry?
I guess I'd never say never. But I guess getting albeit a very acute taste of a different life and a different lifestyle, probably not. I'm in a position where I get to turn my computer on at 9 a.m. and turn it off at 5 p.m. and not have to think about any clients or any letters or getting home from clinics or washing instruments or
driving an hour,
any of that sort of stuff. Where a work-life balance is quite good as well. So as it stands right now, in the finite period of time that I've had a change of careers, probably not. I don't think I will.
Yeah, no, I think it's all good. And I was doing an online course that Seth Godin was doing, and he said what was really important. What he said is a lot of people will start a career because they've invested 4 or 5 years of their life into that career, they feel they can never leave it because they go, hang on, I've invested so much time and so much money, I can't leave. And he's just going, and then they'll stay in a career for 20, 30 years and be really, really unhappy.
Yeah.
And he said, so sometimes the smartest thing to do is to pull up stumps early and leave. So for our American friends listening to this, stumps are like things that we use in cricket, in case you're wondering. So I want to thank you for sharing some of your stories. This has been great. And I think it's going to be really helpful for employers listening to this. Maybe they've picked up a few things. And if they didn't pick up on it, I will actually tell them what I think I picked up from your story so far. So thanks a lot, Mr. Anonymous.
You read between the lines a little bit.
Yeah. No, that was really good. Thank you.
No, absolute pleasure, Tyson. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to Mr. Anonymous and you took a few tips away from that. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not going to share my own thoughts on this. I'm going to keep that until the end of part 2 when we've listened to all 5 recordings, and then I can put that together with the information that I gathered from some other people that I've spoken to. So now we're going to move on to my second guest. So sit back and enjoy. Okay, so with me now is David Taylor. He doesn't want to be anonymous. He's fine. He reckons he's burnt all his bridges in podiatry, so there's no more that he can burn. So, David, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Tyson.
So thank you for joining me on this Why I Left Podiatry episode. And just a quick question, or a couple. So when did you actually graduate, and where did you graduate from?
I graduated in 2010 in Cardiff. So it was, at the time, it was called UWIC, the University of Wales Institute Cardiff, but I think they call it Cardiff Met now.
Okay, so from 2010, how many years did you end up working in the profession for?
10. I think it was 10 years.
Okay, so you didn't get out that long ago. So you only left within the last 2 years?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, here's the big question. Why did you leave? What was it that sort of made you just go, because you did it for 10 years. So, well, actually, we'll go back a step. So did you work in the UK at all when you first graduated?
No. So the UK universities, their academic year finishes around about the June, July.
Oh, mid-year.
So we kind of graduate in August. Yeah, in August. And then for August, and at the time I ran a sports injuries clinic in the UK. So I was doing that whilst I was doing my podiatry.
Okay.
So and then I moved out to Australia in December. I arrived on the 2nd of December 2010 and started to work in Brisbane.
Okay, so was it just a job was being offered and you saw the position? Is that why you came over? Or did you hunt for a job over here?
I did a little bit of hunting. I had someone in Toowoomba contact me, and we're going to tee something up. And they kept pushing back dates and changing contracts and stuff. And then the company in Brisbane just came and said, "Yep, I had an interview at 2:00 in the morning, UK time," and I was a bit dozy. Had the interview, and then 6 weeks later, I packed my bags and came out. 2 bags and 2 bikes, and yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to mention the name of where you worked, because I don't want anyone to feel burnt over this particular episode.
Yeah. I'll try and keep it anonymous.
Yeah, no, that's okay. What was the first job like? How did you find that?
It was a challenge at first because obviously coming from a UK national health, NHS mindsets, and being trained in their process and procedures, to coming over to Australia where it's kind of private health and you have your Medicare and your DVA and all these extra things which you have to get your head around.
Yeah.
I spent a couple of days with the directors, just working with them directly to see how the clinic runs their process and procedures, and then it was just off you go in at the deep end, and or trying to learn all the private health codes and item numbers and
so it's a lot to take in. Like, as a new graduate, I think back now to like owning my own practice, and like you said, just the item numbers and codes and how you apply them, and on top of that, then you've got patients coming with different problems. The amount of stuff that actually has to go on in your head, I think as employers, we sometimes forget it could be a lot of overwhelm for a new graduate.
That's correct. But luckily, we had a fantastic admin team there who were really on the ball, and they're very well trained in that area. So you can come out and say, "Can you just do this, 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 and this?" And then you know exactly what to do. And you go, "Thank you, Mrs. Jones. I'll see you next Tuesday." And the next one will be sat there, and you can take them straight to, and then they'll just do all the billing, and it will be done. So that took a lot of the stress and the worry out of that side. But obviously, over the years, you move practices, you do have to learn that stuff.
So you worked, because you told me you worked in Brisbane for how long did you work in Brisbane, and then you moved to the Gold Coast?
So I worked in Brisbane for 2 years with that company, and then I left that company and went and worked in Tweed Heads.
Okay.
So I had a brief stint in Tweed Heads working there. So they had a lot of the same machinery, orthotic scanners and CNCs and milling. So that was a great thing to have in that clinic. That's equipment I was familiar with. Things didn't work out well at that clinic. So I actually then went to a company back in Brisbane. I was commuting from Tweed to Brisbane every day. And this is probably the best job I had. It was a not-for-profit company.
Okay.
And they were not-for-profit. But the great thing is everything was done correctly. They had... Because
they weren't concerned about profits.
Exactly. So you go and see patients. You go and see you didn't do any nursing homes, but you had any day respite centres or home visits. You can go in and do exactly what the patient needs, and not have to worry about can the patient afford it.
Yeah.
You can go and use your silver dressings. You can go and use all the good stuff.
Who was that with, by the way? Who was that actually with? Because this is a positive.
There's a company was called FlexiCare.
Okay.
FlexiCare. They were based in Mansfield, and they had an in-home care department. They did a lot of in-home help, and then they had a full podiatry department as well. So we did do a small charge, but it was
negligible.
I can't remember. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
but people are happy to pay it, and because they're not for profit, you're not scrutinized on how many patients you see and how much money you've brought in at the end of the day. They go, did all the patients turn up? Yep. Oh, okay, great, awesome. Any problems? Yeah, you had a head podiatrist. You come back and do your notes at the main centre. At the end of the day, bring all your instruments back. They had a whole CSD department where other staff did all the instruments. You can drop your notes off, and you talk to all the other pods. You can have a bit of a handover. You can throw ideas off each other. The senior pod was there, so you can ask her for assistance if you needed to. Very well run.
So why did you leave there? Because you seemed really happy there, and then you went and worked privately again.
Yes. So I had an interview with someone down the southern end of the Gold Coast, and they weren't I was living down Tweed South at the time, so I was commuting to Brisbane every day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I suppose, yeah, the travel would have been a bit of a pain in the ass after a while.
But this person, they weren't a registered employer to be a sponsor, because I was on a 457 visa at the time.
Ah, okay.
You see, so it took a long time for them to be a registered employer and then to transfer the visa and stuff. So I was working in flexi-care at the time until the process. If the traveling wasn't so much, flexi-care would have been an awesome company. So there wasn't a much for progression.
Yeah.
Because you just want to be the senior pod, and that would be it. But you get a great variety of work. Again, great people to work with. You had a company car. Everything was supplied, and no stress. So you can concentrate on the patient. You can do exactly what you want to do for the patient.
So I want to move ahead a bit. So you worked on the Gold Coast for a period of time. Why did you leave? What was it that made you leave podiatry? What was the tipping point?
The tipping point was being constantly scrutinized for the monetary value you bring into the business. Not so much though. All your patients are extremely happy. We've had no complaints. You run on time every single day. All those metrics are perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a second. You're not bringing in, at least 3 times your wage. Is the figures that they throw out. You're only bringing in 2.5 your wage or 2. And
were you given the type of patients that have the ability to make 3 times? Because unless you're seeing a certain number of biomechanical patients who are converting to orthotics and the higher paying type things, nail surgeries, it's hard to make 3 times what you're being paid if you're just seeing general patients.
Exactly. And because there's only 2 people in the practice.
Yeah.
Whatever came in got booked into your diary. It wasn't split between, one does biomechanic, one does, FMT or nail surgeries. It was just kind of an even split. But we'll have periods where it'll be very quiet and there'll be a lot of cancellations, and I would get the heat of, why is there gaps in your diary?
And you have control over that.
And I'm like, well, I don't do marketing. I don't do outreach. If they're not booked in, I can't see them. They want to know why there's a dip in the monetary values. And it's that constant of trying to justify my existence in the practice. Coming from, again, an NHS trained background where, again, NHS is, it's not chargeable. You have all these resources. It's not about how much money you make. It's about, the quality of care.
Yeah.
To now coming to Australia and it's sell. We want you to make money. Here are your KPIs for the month. If you make X amount of money, we'll give you some incentives, which I always thought was an extremely very dodgy ground of giving someone incentive to make X amount of money per month. When I'm doing stuff for the patient, am I doing it? Is it best for the patient or is it best for the business?
That's interesting.
And my own back pocket. I want to be able to go home at night and sleep right, that I've done the correct thing for the patient every time. But the back of my head, I know I've got directors going, money. I want to keep my job.
It's really interesting that you say that, though, because even in my own business, I had KPIs and I told the staff what was going on, and there were certain benchmarks that I knew should be achieved based on if you've got communication skills and you can explain things to patients. But it's really interesting hearing it from, I should interview some of my past employees. I'll probably never be able to release that. They might tell me the truth. But it's actually what it is. What I'm really enjoying from what you're saying is, so what you're telling me now is the sort of stuff you can't actually have an honest conversation with your boss.
No, and sometimes you feel like you're backed into a corner. And the one examples I've told previous colleagues is, while I worked in Brisbane, I saw a patient. I think it was a teenager, probably about 14, with the parents, and I saw the patient. Did a full assessment with them. Can't remember what I did or didn't do, because it was a long time ago. But they went on the merry way. I sat on the desk. I was in one of the boss's rooms. I did did my patient notes. Because it's on a internal system, they can see it in their offices and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
All the patient notes. So I sat there, did my patient notes, safe, brilliant. Walked out the room, had a chat with the reception about something, walked into my usual room that I usually consult out of. And I already had an email from them saying, why didn't you give that patient orthotics? Because they were sat there just watching my notes being written, and then poof, email straight away.
So it's sort of like a bit of a big brother.
It micromanaging.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just me, it was a lot of the people at that practice. And the sad thing, really everyone that I worked with at that practice no longer do podiatry.
Okay, so this is the practice back in Brisbane that is quite large and with multiple locations and things like that.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay, so when you decided to finally leave podiatry, was there a straw that broke the camel's back that you just went, that's it, I've had enough?
It wasn't like a complete snap. And I throw my toys out the pram. F this, I'm out sort of thing.
Yeah,
so
bugger this.
I knew as things were slowly getting worse. And like I said, I'll put outside the practice and I just take a big breath every day before I go in, get ready for the shit show. I'll have bits of paper left on my desk of last week's take-ins and stuff. It was almost some little psychological, this is where you're at, come on.
That's not good.
I was like, I don't need this. So I went to night school and I was getting myself prepped for probably a good year before actually handing my notice.
Yeah.
And saying goodbye.
How good did it feel? How good did it feel when you left?
Yeah, it was good in a way. It was good and sad.
Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't mean it that way, like, oh, isn't it good that you left? But I'm saying, like, when you eventually made that decision to walk away, did you feel like, I think I'm doing the right thing?
Yes, but also I had the nerves of, shit, am I doing the right thing? Of leaving my career behind.
Yeah. And,
starting on a completely different avenue. And with many more uncertainties, it was. I've got a mortgage, all the other things. I don't have any kids, but I still got bills I have to pay.
So what did you end up doing? So you left podiatry. What did you do as a replacement?
So I'm currently doing my electrical apprenticeship, and I'm working with Otis Elevators.
Okay, so pay wise, how much do you make now compared to what you're making as a podiatrist?
Okay, so I am currently an apprentice.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me your exact wages.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it, but I am making a third more doing this than I was doing podiatry.
Oh, that's terrible. So you're making a third more as an apprentice
than
elevator electrical person. So when you were working as a podiatrist, what were you on then?
I can't remember. It was about, I think it's like 80.
Okay.
80 to 85, and then plus you got super and
all the other stuff
on top of that. Good thing about what I'm doing, we're part of with the EBA, enterprise business agreements.
Yeah.
So they're set very, very high. So I get paid a lot more, and then I get a company van, I get travel allowances, I get as soon as I go a minute over my hours, it's double time. It's and also I've been working in Lismore the last how many months. So and also with all the floods down there, the work is just skyrocketing. So yeah.
So before we finish up, is there anything else you want to? Like if someone's listening to this, because I'm not doing the reason I'm not doing this episode because I want podiatrists to leave. I'm doing this episode because I want podiatrists to actually stay. But I'm doing it more so I want employers, future employers, to listen to this and go, this is why people are leaving the profession.
Yeah. And when we see patients, we don't want the business to go under. We don't want the business to lose money because that's our job gone anyway. We don't want to see a patient and try and do them harm or a disservice. We usually, or most people, we try and do the best for the patient. And also the patient will tell us confidential things in that consult, which we won't put in the patient notes. Maybe the financial situation, maybe there's some hardships in there which they can't afford $600 orthoses right now. So hey, look, let's try an off-the-shelf pair. Okay, let's try a prefab. Let's just actually, you've got really, really bad shoes. Let's get some new shoes first. Let's see if that will help you. And then we'll move up the ladder to progress the treatments up from that. Instead of going bang, top dollar treatment. A lot of employers, they want the money there and then. And not necessarily when the patient walks out the door, that's not the last time you will see them. If you get a really good rapport with them, they will come back. And a lot of time I will plant the seed for orthoses with them. And 2 weeks later, they'll call up and they'll come back and go, Dave, I thought about it. Yeah, let's do it. And then the decision is theirs. I haven't forced it upon them. Yeah. And then you'll find compliance with that patient so much better than the patient you've really trying to sold it to. Because if you force and try and sell it to them, they're going to want the orthoses to do everything, and it better work. If it doesn't, you're going to know about it, and you're going to have one of those problem patients which will not go away.
So do you think you'll ever come back to podiatry, or you think, it's the bridge is burnt?
No.
You won't come back?
No. When my membership renewal came through, I was just like...
Is this your registration?
No. Yeah, my registration, my APRA. I was like, no, I thought about keeping it going. I thought, well, no, because by looking and reading the fine print, I still got to pay money, do some CBD. I still have to do a minimum amount of hours per year in order just to kind of stay registered. So I was like, no, I won't. And when I finally let that lapse, that was kind of the final last string cut. There's no coming back.
No, that's fine. So David, I want to thank you for sharing some of what you went through, and when this episode comes out, I'll let you know.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, so that's 2 guests so far, and as you can tell, their stories, there were some similarities, but there were some major differences between the two as well, which I think is really important. And you're going to find this next interview with my 3rd guest, it's a completely different story again. So once again, enjoy, and I will talk to you again at the end. Okay, so with me now is a ex-podiatrist who now lives in Michigan in the United States of America. It is Kerry Tull. How are you doing today, Kerry?
I am well. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. The name of the podcast is Legends in Podiatry, but I'm certainly at the bottom of that list. I don't consider myself a legend at all, but I'm here. So
that's all right. Nobody that comes, I don't think I'd invite anyone on here who said, I want to come on your show because I am a legend. Like I always say, I'm a legend in my own
I'm in the right place.
Yeah, I'm a legend in my own lunchtime. Or in my own lunchbox. It's it's great. And we've got to thank Tia Wynn for passing your name on to me.
Yes, thanks.
So, quick question. When did you graduate? When did you finish podiatry?
I finished podiatry school in 96. I did a residency after that.
Yeah.
And it was just a 1-year surgical residency, which is non-existent, I believe, nowadays. I was offered a 2-year surgical residency, turned it down because I wasn't really crazy about doing rear foot and reconstructive cases. I never really wanted that in my career. And so I was just happy with my forefoot, and did a 1 year under Dr. Charles Witt, who is a legend, who should be on your legendary podcast, but a great man, and taught me a lot. So
So once you got into podiatry, was podiatry your first choice as far as occupations is concerned?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was. I did my undergraduate schooling at Michigan Tech University, where I actually played basketball for them, but I was
I know you're sitting down at the moment. You look tall when you're sitting down. So
well, not that tall. Only 5'9", so not incredibly tall. But from there, I had a medical technology undergraduate degree. And so when I went to speak to my advisor about, what I could do, he said, well, you can get into medicine. And because I wanted more of a 9-to-5 life, I wanted to have kids. I didn't want to be on call. Yeah. Podiatry was one of the selections. And so, it was that, and optometry and some other fields in medicine that give you that 9-to-5. And, because I was an athlete, I had a lot of foot and ankle trouble myself. And I thought, well, this is right up my alley. So yes, it was my first choice. And I applied to one podiatry school, which was in Chicago, and got in. So I went there in 92 and then graduated in 96.
So once you graduated, you did your residency. What was your first job like? Your first job where you were getting paid? Did you enjoy it?
So, I was away from family, and I was only there for a couple of years. I can't say that I was, enjoyed it all that much.
And that wasn't in Michigan, wasn't it? That's not where you are now.
No, that was in Wisconsin. So I'm originally from northern Wisconsin. And so I kind of went back to that area up there. I would say it was my second job that I really enjoyed. And that was in northern Wisconsin, also under a couple of legends, at least in my mind they are, Dr. Shannon Meyer and David Larson. And what we did together and under their tutelage, of course, was to establish diabetic foot care programs at the Native American reservations up there, which there are many, and decrease their amputation rates. So we did a lot of limb salvage work, a lot of, hospital inpatient stuff, the grueling, I say ugly part really of podiatry.
Did you say you enjoyed that because you really felt like you were making a change to people's lives?
I did. I'm going to say in the beginning, I did. Because, I think all of us that are in the industry of medicine all have servants' hearts. I mean, we all get into this because we want to help people. I can't imagine doing a job where I'm not helping somebody. It's in my bones. And I think for the vast majority of us, and there might be some outliers, but I think we all feel that way, that we just want to help, So when I got into that part of podiatry, which I never intended to do, I thought mine would be more of a sports medicine type of track and biomechanics. But
that's what I was expecting, the direction you would have gone as well.
Yeah, but when you practice in northern Wisconsin, it's not a mecca of collegiate sports or any professional sports up there. So it was a mecca of diabetic problems, and so that's kind of how I got into it. And I did feel like I was helping because, a lot of this was end stage. Like, we're saving your foot. You either get it amputated or you come to us and we try to salvage this. So that part of it was rewarding in the beginning, but it's also very labor intensive. It's kind of thankless, which, you don't get reimbursed a lot for your work. Not that that was the, top priority, but in the end, if you're going to the hospital every single day, monitoring these people closely, you should get compensated for that. And so because of how insurances work and global periods and all that, there wasn't that. So, and then you would see the same offenders. So if you're in it long enough, you're going to see the same foot and save it 3 or 4 or 5 times. Okay. And that's hard to take. That is exhausting. And especially coming from somebody who's got an athletic background, who's driven, to care more than the actual patient cares for themselves is hard.
Is that what you meant before though? So when I said, oh, so you felt like you're really helping people, and you're saying, well, yeah, initially, but then you think, like you said, you care more about them than they care about themselves. So you got the same people coming back with the same problems and not learning from the first time that they went through it.
Yes, or the second, or the fourth.
I do recall sometimes having a diabetic patient in front of me, and you're trying to educate them, and in one pocket is a packet of cigarettes, and in the other pocket is a big Mars bar, a chocolate.
Don't forget the Mountain Dew.
Yeah, and you say to them, so how's your health going? Are you looking after yourself? Oh yeah, I'm down to 1 packet of cigarettes a day, and I'm going, that Mars bar, that's for the grandchildren. Oh no, that's for me. I'm going to eat it when I leave here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and after a while, you start to get a little maybe resentful, maybe a little jaded, and I felt myself going down that road. And before I got there, I thought, patients don't deserve this. I mean, if you're picking up a chart and you're reading their diabetic medication list and you're reading, how much they weigh and then you're rolling your eyes before you walk in the door, you don't belong there anymore. That's not the doctor that those patients needed walking in that door. And so I thought, I got to get away from this. I'm not who they need anymore.
Did you then go on to a different job, or was this the deciding factor to leave podiatry?
No, it wasn't the deciding factor to leave. So then from there, because of the snow and the cold of northern Wisconsin, my husband and I, my 3 kids, decided to move down to the Kentucky area and try to escape those long winters up there. And I thought, okay, I can kind of reinvent what I'm doing in the world of podiatry. I need to get away from this limb salvage stuff because it is so mentally taxing. And I'm at the hospital all the time and I have kids. So let's try and change the quality of life here a little bit. And, that was the attempt to do that. And so I was in Kentucky for about 10 years. And the reason that I got out of podiatry is probably a little bit different than that whole diabetic foot, exhausting kind of part of it. But it's along the same thread in that the quality of life, I think, in medicine and in physicians is starting to decline. Okay. I really feel like medicine has, I don't want to say lost its nobility, but its nobility is less than what it was when I started. And it also provides kind of less of a quality of life for its physicians. When I first started in this, you had a transcriptionist. I spoke into a dictaphone and they would transcribe. Yeah. They would edit everything. I would just circle on my billing slip and that would go to the biller. And slowly through the years, you're seeing now you're responsible for your EHR and your own notes. So you've become the transcriptionist, you've become the editor, you've become the biller. And all of that stuff is slowly trickled on top of our doctors with no compensation for that. So you're spending more time, you're more responsibility, you aren't getting paid anything more for it. So at some point, there's a breaking point, where the reward of helping and serving and just is outweighed by the burden of less quality of life, less time with your family, no additional resources to show for it. And pretty soon the scale kind of tips and you think to yourself, what am I doing this for?
So it reminds me of someone that I was talking to recently who a past employee had complained about something, went to the registration board. Then when the registration board's doing their investigation, all of a sudden they went totally on a different path. They said, we want to look at clinic files. And whatever that original complaint was, there was nothing to answer there. But they'd gone down a different rabbit hole and then started saying, oh, your notes, you don't have enough clinical reasoning on the stuff that you're doing. For every patient that comes to you, you've got to start writing notes on what your clinical reasoning is behind everything. And this podiatrist note just went, that is just ridiculous. That when someone comes in for a particular problem, everybody knows why we treat something a certain way. I shouldn't have to write that every single time. And it's just, it's an added level of stress that is constantly put on people or put on podiatrists.
Yes.
So were you feeling that? Were you just feeling it's all these layers of bureaucracy that just kept getting piled on top of you that you're thinking, okay, this is getting a bit too much?
Yeah, completely. And, I never even owned the business that I worked for. I was always an associate and purposely because I didn't really want to deal with a whole lot of the business end of medicine. But you're forced into it. Even if you're an associate, even if you don't own the practice, you're forced into the business end of medicine. And, again, when I first started, I think medicine was more just medicine. And now it's more business. You're right. The layers of responsibility that get thrown on doctors and then you're meant to, just, what went for like fee for service is now become more of a, what's the term that they use for it? Like value-based medicine. Yeah. And so when you get into value-based medicine, now it's more kind of a popularity contest. I mean, it's just, it is a popularity. It is a popularity contest. We just finished watching the show on TV called Inventing Anna. I don't know if you've seen it at all. Oh yes, I watched that.
That was really, really good, and it was something that her lawyer said towards the end, where everybody in life now is a liar, because everybody is on social media, and what they put on social media is not a true reflection of their real life. They said, even if you filtered a photo just once, you have not put out the complete truth. And he said, the world has now become a popularity contest. Who is the most popular podiatrist?
Right. And so you wind up as a podiatrist getting sucked into that broken system. Yeah. And, relinquishing your dignity to win the popularity contest. And I was not willing to do that. I'm not willing to do that.
So when did you get out? So how many years ago did you get out of podiatry?
1 year.
1 year ago. 1 year. Oh, so it's all fresh. Mm-hmm. So the wounds are still fresh. That's good.
Yeah. Well, and I worked for a really great outfit because I only worked part-time for the last about 4 years.
Whereabouts in Kentucky?
in Lexington, down in the Nicholasville area, which is just south of Lexington. So Bluegrass Regional Foot and Ankle. And the owners are Paul Krestick and Danny Albertson, and they are just quality men.
Yeah.
I mean, just the greatest bosses that you could ever imagine. And I loved it there, and which is the only reason I went back. I mean, I knew Dr. Krestick for many years, and he kept kind of luring me, come on, because I had taken a break after my job down there, and I don't know if I even intended to go back at that point, but he kind of lured me into the part-time gig, and just quality guys. But so my exit, I want to say, started probably 10 years ago, where I thought I was missing something in podiatry. So, we moved down to Lexington, I got a different job, and I, got away from the diabetic thing. And, maybe I need bigger cases, maybe I need to do more surgery. I mean, I was missing this piece that I couldn't really put into words. And so I was searching, okay, maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to try that, and so nothing fit. And I got out, but I love what I do now.
Yeah. So what do you do now? Tell everyone what you do now.
I absolutely cannot say enough about this, but I do health coaching. And I know that's kind of a big blanket term, and you probably hear it a lot nowadays, but the company that I work with is called Optavia. And I
How do you spell
heard
that?
of it through Optavia. And I heard of this through a high school friend of mine who was coaching it, and just seeing her on Facebook. And again, Facebook, there's, like you said, there's a lot of falseness to it, but there's nothing false about this particular friend of mine. I mean, she, and I knew that about her. So, trusting her, I gave her a call and I said, hey, what are you doing? So we started talking, and she started explaining the program. And Optavia is designed by a critical care physician, which really then piqued my interest, because I thought, okay, well, this is, medically based. Let's look into it. And it is a system of wellness. It covers every area of wellness that you can think of: hydration and nutrition and motion and healthy mind, healthy sleep, all of it. And what it does is allows me to educate those people that I couldn't educate in my office. I've, for example, had a client who, started the program because his legs hurt so bad. He was a diabetic. His legs hurt so bad he couldn't make it to the car, and his blood sugars were 280, out of control. So had he gone into Western medicine, they would have said, okay, here's another drug, right? Yeah. That's what they would have done. Your blood sugars are out of control. Here's another medication. We got to get those under control. But they don't have time in the office to start talking to him about, we need to get you nutritionally sound. We need to, and here's how we're going to do it. I've been on the other side of that office door. You don't have time to spend with patients to do that. So in this, you have time. And so what he did, and when he started it, he was probably 280 pounds. He was on 3 different diabetic medications, 2 blood pressure medications, sleeping with a CPAP machine, couldn't make it to his car without leg pain. And today he's 70 pounds lighter. I think, no, that's wrong. He's almost 90 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
And walks 3, 4, 5 miles a day. He is on I think it might be a half now, diabetic medication, and half of a blood pressure medication, and does not sleep with a CPAP. His life is 180 degrees different than what it was a year ago. And I don't think I've ever been more rewarded in helping somebody in 25 years of podiatry than I am with situations like this.
So this path that you're on now, so this path you're on now is giving you that feeling of when you first worked with the limb salvage group, before you realized that they were just going to come back. You're actually seeing changes of these people, changing their lifestyle. So now that you're down this path of health coaching, do you think you'll ever go back to podiatry?
Not unless I'm forced.
I like that.
The here is too great. And you know what? Here's the other thing. I have an amazing husband that has an amazing job. Okay. Yeah. So I have the luxury of not needing the podiatry income. I have that luxury. Not a lot of people have that.
Yeah, that's true.
And so very, very fortunate to be able to do what I want that is rewarding and not what I have to do.
That's a really good point. That's that's a great point, actually, to almost wrap up, because it's one of those things. Some people, they may not enjoy podiatry, but they keep doing it because they do need the money and there isn't an alternative.
Yeah. Right.
But sometimes, I don't know, just the people that I've spoken to so far, I think sometimes you can do a transition out of podiatry if that's what you choose to do.
I certainly know people in the field who have a good life balance. They've had to work hard at it. I mean, Tia's one.
Well, Tia,
she has a great life balance, and she's done it through, just she doesn't accept insurance. She does just cash practice. And because of that, I think she's able to control things a little bit more. So I think there's ways that you can make, podiatry a little less of a rat race, but you can have to work at it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you do that and you still don't find it rewarding, I think there's other things out there that, because of your podiatry background, that you'd be really well qualified for. Anything in the insurance side of, we know probably more so than any other medical profession, because we have to do a lot of our own billing, So I think there's a lot of insurance things and billing and all of that. There's office, management kind of, positions. So I wouldn't be afraid to look at other industries, because I think we are uniquely qualified to be able to do a lot of things as a podiatrist.
So, Kerry, I want to thank you for sharing some of your story, part of your story. I think it'd be a lot more interesting if we kept digging down. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thanks.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the three guests today. And as I said, this isn't about looking for negatives in the profession. I'm trying to find reasons or answers why people are leaving the profession. And I think if we can find out that reason, we can plug those holes, we're going to get more people staying, and the profession is going to be better for it. As I mentioned right at the start, I'm not going to share my own comments on this particular episode. I will open that up a little bit more when I finish part 2, or which will come out next week. So I hope you enjoyed these 3 interviews, and I hope if you're an employee, you've taken something from it, and I hope if you're an employer, you have taken someone from it. But definitely tune in next week, because the next 2 episodes are really good, and once again, they're completely different stories again. And then I will share the other information that I gathered from people who didn't actually want to come on the podcast. This information altogether, I think, is absolutely fantastic, and we are all going to be better off for it in the end. So look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.